Hey guys, this is Shelby with the Rogers Public Library. So this week for Makerspace at Your Place, I wanted to talk to you guys about wax and some cool craft ideas that you can do with it. So just to start off, wax is basically kind of an umbrella term that refers to lipids, right? So things that dissolve in oil, but not water, that are solids at room temperature, but they're kind of malleable, right? If you think about like beeswax, and then that get all melty and kind of viscous at slightly higher temperatures, right? So this is wax, right? Or maybe if we're more familiar with crowns, right? So I kind of went a little overboard on this one. I made a couple of things that ended up being various levels of successful. The first thing I made was actually this like face paint, and I'm using that term kind of extremely loosely. It's more like paint that doesn't dry, but all I did is I mixed some crowns together with vegetable oil. So theoretically speaking, you can use this as face paint, right? Because it's made out of non-toxic ingredients. But if you go on the Crayola website and ask if you and look up whether you can use their crowns as face paint, they tell you not to do that. So, that's just kind of a curiosity, I guess. And second thing I did was this guy, right? So if this looks like a bunch of wax that been melted together in the microwave, that's because it is what it is, or that's what it is, right? So I made this one by heating up a bunch of wax in a mason jar just like this one, and then pouring it into a piece of aluminum foil. And I thought the colors would be like a bunch of different, or the colors would be like kind of like swirly and stuff, but it ended up just everything mixing together and being this kind of gross shade of brown. So then I had a little bit of a smarter idea. I got wax paper, right? Just thinking, right? So if I have wax and I have wax paper, I can melt them together and it'll look cool. First, I tried to do that with a hairdryer, and I ended up getting wax all over the place. And then I tried to use a steamer, which is like for our, getting wrinkles out of like curtains and stuff. And that didn't really work much better, right? It just kind of looks weird. And then I had my smart idea, the one that I'm going to show you guys how to do, which is to use an iron. I'm going to adjust the temperature on this right now. Right, so this is, you probably have one of these at home that your parents used to get wrinkles out of clothes. So this, you'll need an iron, you'll need wax paper, and you'll need crowns, and optionally a pencil or sharpener, right? I say optionally because you don't have to use it to break up the crowns, but it just makes it a little bit easier and a little bit safer to use one of these, right? So the iron is set at a low temperature. Right now it's on the acrylic setting, which is about as low as it gets. And that's because we don't need a lot of heat to melt crowns, right? They're going to start melting around 120 degrees Fahrenheit, right? And this thing, it gets pretty hot, so low setting is good, right? I'm going to put the crown in the pencil sharpener, and I'm going to put some shavings onto the wax. So the thing about this is that you can't really make like super precise shapes, right? You're kind of limited to the pieces that you can get off a crown using a pencil sharpener, or just breaking it apart with your hands like this. So that's probably too big of a piece. Get some other colors to go on here too, right? The other thing about this is that technically speaking is a form of encaustic. So encaustic is the artistic term for painting with wax, right? And the cool thing about painting with wax is that you can get some really bright, vivid colors, and you can also get some interesting textures, right? Because you can build it up in ways that are harder to do with something like acrylic paint. So there we go. We have our pencil shavings, or crown shavings rather, and they're on our piece of wax paper. You notice they're only on one side, and that's because I'm going to fold the other side over like this, right? And it's a little boat at the bottom. Okay, there we go. Right. So I have my piece of wax paper. I'm going to put it on here. I'm just going to heat it up ever so slightly. Right? And like I said, you don't need a lot of heat to heat it up, but you can vary the heat, and you can vary the amount of time that you have, or that you press the iron down to get different effects, right? Right, so if you leave it on for a really long time, the wax is going to get runny and it's going to start mixing together. Right now, the wax, I mean, it's melting, but it's not fully liquid, right? So it's still really viscous and it's not moving around a lot. And that's good if we want kind of defined sections, right? And now you can see, now it's pretty runny, right? And I think that's good, right? And then to finish it off, you can seal it along, you leave the wax along the edges, right? There's not really any paint, or there's not a lot of paint. Maybe a better way to put it. And that just kind of joins the wax paper together, right? So it creates like an envelope around everything, and helps protect your art. Okay, yeah. And of course, we have a towel down just so the iron doesn't get on the table. I'm going to leave burn marks or anything. Now I'm going to trim my art. So the edges look a little bit neater. Ta-da! Yeah. So that's all there is to it. This is some other stuff I worked on, right? So it's a lot more runny, right? This was when I was still learning and I had the iron set to a hotter temperature. I'm just going to unplug this really quick since we're done with it. So now it can start cooling off, right? So it's very, very runny. This was a later experiment that I think turned out a little bit better, although I used colors that were too close together, so they didn't. Got a little iffy. I also tried some stuff out using aluminum foil. So this is half of it's wax and the other half is foil. And it kind of produces this cool metallic effect. It's nice. I don't know if I like it as much as I like the two pieces of wax, or the piece of wax folded on itself. And then this was with 2 pieces of aluminum foil, right? So I put the shavings down and I put a piece of aluminum foil on top. I melted them and then I pulled them apart, right? So it looks really gnarly, right? The texture is a lot more obvious though, right? You can see places where it's built up, but you don't really have as much control over how it looks at the end, because you can't really tell how melted it's getting in there. And you also don't have a lot of control over which wax is going to end up on which piece of aluminum foil. So that's what I have for you guys for Makerspace for this place this week. We're going to have craft kits here at the library for you guys to pick up for this one, the wax paper and crayons. Yeah, so I hope you had fun, and I'll see you.